Hiya 10. So I thought in preparation for your exams, we would do some videos looking at how you plan for the extended writing. We're going to start by looking at how you plan for the scene poetry, since Miss Smith last week looked at the unseen poetry. You should have found attached to your homework some blank planning sheets which look the same as what I'm going to be showing you today. So here is the rough outline for a plan of a scene poetry essay. You start with your thesis introduction, as you all know, which is this part here. Your thesis introduction should be 3 sentences long. The first sentence should say what the key word in a question is and what it means. The second sentence should say what the poets want us to think about that key word. And the third sentence is how is the theme shown in both poems. You should spend about 5 minutes on your thesis introduction. Your second paragraph will be structure, which should take you about 7 minutes to write. You will not use a quotation in this paragraph, you can just refer to line numbers, and on the poem printed will be the line numbers. Remember, white space, stanzas and punctuation are the best pieces of structure to use because they've probably stuck in your heads, and you think about how you link them to the question. The third paragraph will be your language paragraph, and again it should take you 7 minutes. You will take your quotation from your poem, which should be a maximum of 6 words. Pick out a word and say what it means in relation to the poem, as well as why it was used in comparison to another word. You will then compare this quotation to a quotation from the second poem, and I will show you what I mean by that in a little bit. Your next paragraph is the second language paragraph. Again, use a different quotation from somewhere else in the poem and compare it to the other poem. Sets 1, 2 and 3 will do a third language paragraph, but as this video is for sets 4 and 5, you will not. You will finish off your essay with a 5-minute conclusion. In the conclusion, you are going to say which techniques you talked about in your what, how, why paragraphs, and then you are going to say which poem is the best at showing that feeling that was in the question. So let's have a look at how I would plan for my essay. I am not telling you the question that is in your exam. I do not know the question that is in your exam. I am using this as an example for you today. So I have put the question, how is the theme of rejection presented in Porphyria's Lover and one other poem? Pause this recording now to write the question onto your blank planning sheet. Okay, now that we have our question, we need to think about what we're going to put into our introduction. So I think that the key word in this question is rejection. And rejection to me means when somebody doesn't want you or what you are offering. I'm then going to say what I think the poets are trying to show, and I think they are showing negative reactions to rejection. I'm also going to use the introduction to tell the examiner what my other poem is, and in this case I have chosen neutral tones. So pause this recording now to write down your notes for your thesis introduction. We're now going to look at structure and what notes I've put down for structure. So for Porphyria's Lover, I'm going to talk about free verse because the poem is all one long stanza. And for neutral tones, I'm going to talk about the fact that the lines seem to move in and out. Some look longer, some look shorter, leading to white space. That is the structural point I am going to be talking about. Pause this recording now to write down your structure ideas. We're now on to the first of the language paragraphs. For Porphyria's Lover, I have decided to talk about the angry verbs that have been used, for example, strangled or weak. And for neutral tones, I'm going to talk about angry verbs as well. chidden and starving being the two examples I have picked out. It doesn't matter if you are doing a comparison and say things are the same. What matters in the language paragraph is the actual examples you use from the poem. So pause this recording now to get down your first ideas for your language what, how, why. I'm now on to my second language what, how, why, and I have to think of a different technique to use. I can't use angry verbs again. So this time for both poems again, I have decided that I'm going to use the references to God that are in both poems. In Porphyria's Lover, he says, "And yet God has not said a word." And in Neutral Tones, he talks about the chidden by God, the sun, and then he calls it the God-cursed sun. So references to God are clearly important in both poems. Pause this recording now to get your second language ideas written down. I'm now on to my conclusion. My conclusion will be quite short. I'm going to mention rejection again, and then I'm going to tell the examiner all of the devices I have spoken about. So for structure, it was free verse and uneven stanzas, and for language, it was angry verbs and references to God. Pause your recording now to write down your notes for the conclusion. So that is the basic outline of my plan, but I now need to plan it in a little bit more detail on a quote explosion. This is what your quote explosions look like that you have used in class. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to write about Porphyria's Lover in green and Neutral Tones in purple. In the middle, I've put my quotations. As this is a structure point I'm writing about, and the two things I've chosen on my previous plan aren't in any specific line references, I've just written whole poem. But you can write the line references if you would like. So let's go through and look at what I've put in a little bit more detail for each of my questions. So the first question is, what is happening in the quote? Well, in Porphyria's Lover, we have a woman coming into the shelter, and in a perfect moment, the man kills her. It's the whole poem, so I've written roughly what the whole poem is about. For Neutral Tones in purple, I've just written down it's memories of the woman rejecting him, because that is what the poem is about on the whole. So pause this recording now to write down your answer to question 1 for structure. On to question 2. Where in the text is this quotation a technique? Well, it's very simple. I've already mentioned this to you. It's in the whole poem for Porphyria's Lover, and it's in the whole poem for Neutral Tones. In fact, in Neutral Tones, every stanza has 2 short lines and 2 longer lines. So pause this recording now to write down your notes for question 2. For question 3, is there a device? What is it? Well, again, I've already mentioned this. The device in Porphyria's Lover is free verse when it is one long continuous poem, and in Neutral Tones there is uneven lines which lead to white space. So pause this recording now to write down your answer to question 3. Now on to question 4. What are the connotations related to the feature? So in Porphyria's Lover, free verse is used to show the whole incident took place over a very short period of time. And the connotations of the uneven lines in the white space, he is thinking too much of the past, because we know that white space can cause thinking. So pause this recording now to write your answer for question 4. Finally, question 5 for structure is the link to context. We know that Robert Browning felt suffocated in his relationship with Elizabeth Barrett. Is that what he is talking about in the poem? And then for Neutral Tones, Thomas Hardy is miserable. We know that about him, and he compares all of his girlfriends to his ex. He's thinking too much about her. So pause this recording now to write your context link to question 5. Now that we have planned our structured paragraph, I'm going to plan my first language paragraph with you. I'm only going to do one of them, not both today. So I start off by writing my two quotations in the middle box. For Porphyria's lover, I've chosen the quotation "and strangled her." And from neutral tones, I've chosen the quotation "as though chidden by God." Pause this recording now to write your two quotations in the middle of the box. And now, like before, let's go around and answer the questions. So number one, what is happening in the quotes that I have chosen? Well, for Porphyria's lover, the moment the man changes the situation by killing Porphyria is when he says "and strangled her." And in neutral tones, the poet is looking to the sky and thinking even nature can be miserable. That is what is happening when those two quotations are used. So pause this recording now to write down your answer to question 1. Question 2. Is there a device? What is it? Well, yes, there is. I already mentioned in my introduction what device I was going to use. In both poems, it is angry verbs, and I've chosen specifically the verbs strangled and chidden. Pause this recording now to write your answer to question 2. Question 3. The key words to comment on. Remember, for any quotation, don't pick more than 3 key words. I have chosen 2 from each quotation. For Porphyria's lover, I've chosen strangled and her, and for neutral tones, I've picked chidden and God. So pause this recording now to write down your key words from the questions. Now on to question 4, connotations. These are the connotations of the key words you've picked out. So for me, strangled, I think of a violent act and the intention to kill. For her, all that says to me is that this woman has no name anymore. She has just become a nameless object. The connotations of chidden and God. Chidden means to be told off. It's an old-fashioned word. And God means divine, all-powerful, and to a certain extent fatherly. So pause this recording now to write your answers to question 4. Write the connotations of the keywords you picked out, not the keywords I picked out. Question 5, the link to context. So for Porphyria's lover, I've written, Browning was imagining a way of freedom, or a way of getting what he wanted. It could show his frustration with his relationship with Elizabeth Barrett, as he wanted to marry her and her father was being a little bit sort of standoffish. For neutral tones, Thomas Hardy was romantic. He compared everything to nature. If God is telling nature off, something must be wrong. So pause this recording now to write your answer to question 5. Now that you've filled in the planning sheet and the quote explosions, and you would do a second quote explosion for your second language paragraph, you are ready to start writing your essay. I don't expect you to do this much detail in your actual exam, but it would be worth doing the 6 grid notes. Good luck in your scene poetry exam. Hopefully it all goes well for you.